The San Francisco 49ers have pulled a legitimate fast one on the entire National Football League on more than one occasion. Third rounders include guys like best in the world, Fred Warner. Fifth rounders include guys like George Kittle, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Deommodore Lenoir. And then, of course, there are seventh rounders in guys like Juwan Jennings. And I don't know, what's that guy's name again? Brock Purdy, quarterback 1. Let's go. Well, the 49ers have done it again, twice potentially. All of that in this video, plus an early look at the wide receiver depth chart ahead of the rookie minicamp. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers content on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. Please hit that subscribe button. Appreciate it so much. If you do that, it really does help me out from the bottom of my heart. I very much appreciate it. But before we get into the guy that's this upcoming season that I think could be another one of those players, let's talk about a player who already became one of those players, and he was a rookie last season. His name is Dominic Puni. You know this guy, and he got an absolute unreal ranking for a rookie. I mean, like, genuinely, he's a top 10 player, former third-round draft pick out of Kansas City. Or not Kansas City, excuse me, Kansas. But out of Kansas, okay, Jayhawk, drafted in the third round, played all over the offensive line in college. Came in, John Lynch identified something. This is my perspective anyway. I think John Lynch saw something in him that I saw in all of the scouting reports that just lifted off of the page, and it was this idea of athleticism. It was just pervasive in all of the scouting reports and draft prospect profiles, you name it. Everybody talked about what an athlete this guy is, and that's something that doesn't go unnoticed from a guy like John Lynch. He very much loves to draft an athlete, a guy who's flexible, a guy with versatility, and Dominic Puni is one of those guys. Perhaps the most underrated nature of Dominic Puni's game was his consistency. The guy was healthy and available for 100% of the offensive snaps last year at 1,078 snaps at right guard last season. He was available for every single one of them. He was not a roller coaster. He wasn't having great games and horrible games and great games and horrible games. This guy was consistent. He was a steady Eddie, and that is something by itself that should be celebrated. For a rookie to come into the National Football League and be very consistent for probably 70% of the season. That is something, maybe even 80. I haven't done my maths correctly on that one. But this is something that we should at least pay attention to at the very least. Then you get in a guy who's constantly in the first half of the season ending up in the top 5s, top 3s of PFF grades for the entire team. This is rookie Dominic Puni, who only got his shot because of injuries on the offensive line. And once he got his shot, he never let it go. And that's including preseason, mind you, being with the ones in preseason and working his way through the entire season as the number 1 right guard for the San Francisco 49ers. David Bonilla covered this, by the way, because that led to Pro Football Focus rating rookie Dominic Puni a top 10 guard in the National Football League heading into the upcoming season. A top 10 guard. Here's what they said. And I want to tell you what David Bonilla from 49ers Web Zone had to say about this as well. All very fascinating. And then we're going to get to some stuff that Brock Purdy said. We'll get to some wide receiver stuff. We'll get to depth charts, so don't go anywhere. But Dominic Puni, third-round pick in 2024, hit the ground running, says Mason Cameron in his rookie campaign, setting up what should be a highly productive career. Puni posted the 5th highest PFF overall grade at 80.5 among all qualifying guards. He stands out. There was something like 60-something guards. 70-something. He stands out as a road grading interior run blocker with his 18.5% positively graded play rate on runs, ranking 5th out of 77 guards. David Bonilla had something to say about this as well. Wrote a whole article on it in 49ers Web Zone. Always does a great job. I appreciate his work. But here's what he said. It was probably, here we go. Oh, there we go. There it is. He also finishes the highest graded rookie offensive lineman with an 81.5 run blocking grade that led all first-year players at the position. While he surrendered 35 pressures and 3 sacks on the year, all 3 sacks came after week 12, which makes sense, by the way. This is a guy who just came from college. It's very typical of rookie players to start to fall off a little bit, toward week 12, 13, because their bodies are not used to playing that length of a season. Plus, when you're coming out of college, you don't really get a huge rest. You go from college football to getting ready for a Senior Bowl, and you're getting ready for the combine, and like it's just one thing after another after another. You have visits that you're doing. It's just it's not as simple for a rookie to come in, for a college player to come in and do what Dominic Puni did. So absolutely hats off to the young man. And you know what? He did something interesting there, because the 49ers, look, it was probably written in the stars a long time ago that Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore were not going to be 49ers in the future. Like, that was written in the stars because these guys were going to get big money. We knew that. They were going to demand big money in free agency. We weren't going to pay them that. Right? They weren't that kind of value for us. Jalen Moore, obviously, because you still have Trent Williams ahead of him. So you're not going to pay him like a starting left tackle to sit behind Trent Williams. And then Aaron Banks, he's a tricky one, Aaron Banks, because I don't think the demand of the money that he was worth to some teams how valuable he was to the 49ers. If you catch my drift, I'll keep it nice and clean from there. But the 49ers went from having a spot under development to having a spot locked down. And it has to be the case that there was some benefit we saw in Colton McKivitz's game having Dominic Puni next to him playing so well all season long, because Colton McKivitz had a really good season by all, main metrics. So that's Dominic Puni. But there's another guy drafted in the 4th round who's made a considerable jump this offseason by many respective minds in journalism and sports commentary. It's not me saying it. They're saying it. And his name is Jacob Cowing. You're not surprised by this. The actual words, huge leap, you're going to hear in a second here. But here is what Brock Purdy said about working in the offseason with Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing.
What kind of off-season work did you do with Ricky and Jacob? And do you think that that's helped chemistry at this point?
Yeah, they came down to Jacksonville when we were training over there, and just working on the little details of routes and timing and where they're supposed to be, when they can expect the ball out of their breaks on certain routes. Obviously, that's such a huge thing with quarterbacks and receivers, and so I think starting that pretty early in the offseason, and then we translate that all the way over here to OTAs. We've definitely seen that, and I think Cowing's had great OTAs so far, and getting in and out of cuts and being the first one to lead lines and
leading the line,
show guys how routes are supposed to be ran. So he's taken a huge leap there, man. So really excited for him and his development, and so excited to keep.
He's taking a huge leap, Brock Purdy says. That's something that should not go unnoticed, something we should definitely be paying attention to, the huge leap Jacob Cowing has taken. And it leads me to a question, and we got to get to another 4th rounder, by the way, who is turning a lot of heads right now. But it leads me to a question: is this an underrated wide receiver core? Like, is this wide receiver room an underrated wide receiver room? I'm really curious what you think about that. Let me know in the comments about this. We're going to break it down, and we're going to get down into some of the nitty-gritty around how this depth chart is looking right now. And there's one glaring issue with the depth chart right now that we're going to talk about in just a second. But here's what Brock Purdy had to say about Jordan Watkins. He's balling, man. Jordan Watkins has been balling from day one. Really, he's come in and he's done everything pretty right, and he's been on point. He had a lot of explosive plays down the field, and obviously in the short game and the intermediate, he's making plays all around. I'm excited for him. Obviously, we know it's a process throughout this whole thing, from OTAs to the 40 days away to camp. I know he knows that, but I'm really excited to keep working with him and for him to keep learning our offense and how we do things, but definitely a rookie that has popped out in front of everybody. That is your QB1 talking about this wide receiver, this 4th round draft pick that a lot of people overlooked. And this guy has been impressing people every single day. I talked about this when he got drafted. I did some deep dives like all of you guys probably did. And I went into the research, and I was liking a lot of what I was seeing. There's some question marks around consistency of production, but I think some of that had to do with availability and opportunity. So we're going to get into that a little bit as we get closer to, training camp and stuff like that. We'll be talking about Jordan Watkins, no doubt, because he's turning a lot of heads right now. I'm hearing a lot of people getting very, very excited about him. And for that reason, I'm going to put him pretty high in the depth chart. Here's the 49ers depth chart as I see it for the wide receivers. And I'm going to tell you with a huge asterisk, there are a lot of dudes on this that I am like, any of them could move. And I'll tell you about that in a second, okay? But let's start with where the cut line is. You can see the white cut line down at the bottom if you're watching on YouTube right now. And that white cut line, I put at 7. The 49ers took 7 wide receivers in their initial 53-man roster last season in 2024. However, in 2023, they only took 6. Because of what the 49ers have done at the tight end position, there's a question mark there. They've kept fullback, Juice. They kept Kyle Juszczyk around for this upcoming season. So they don't get it. That's another spot that goes into their running back room that they hold 5 typically. So there's a lot of places on this roster where I could see the 49ers being stuck and the wide receiver room only having 6. The problem is, there's one really big glaring issue with this wide receiver depth chart right now, and it's experience, okay? So let's just pull Brandon Aiyuk aside for a second, okay? Because Brandon Aiyuk is obviously the top guy on the depth chart. He's the most important player, as far as the 49ers value him financially speaking. He only had 225 snaps before getting injured. That in itself is kind of interesting. But if you go back to 2023, Brandon Aiyuk, if we get that version of him, oh my word. I mean, we're going to absolutely love everything about what we got in him. We're going to be glad that we paid him every penny we did. That, however, remains to be seen. There's a good question mark. A lot of people believe, Matt Mayoko, for example, believes that he's going to be on the PUP list. So if he's on the PUP list, then, he's not going to be starting the beginning of the season. So that shifts all those players up potentially. So we'll worry about like that part later. That's a conversation for training camp. But here's where the problem starts to show up for the 49ers. You have Juwan Jennings, who's your most experienced wide receiver. Not a bad guy to have as your most experienced wide receiver. Had a total of 459 snaps for the 49ers last year and had significantly less the year before. In fact, he had so few the year before. I think it was a few hundred snaps, 200 and something like that. He doesn't have enough snaps. That's what NES stands for. Not enough snaps in order to actually have an official PFF grade. Okay. Now, Demarcus Robinson, you could argue, has more experience in a way. However, he wasn't playing with the 49ers. He was playing with the Rams. So I kind of put him in a different position in terms of a 49ers experience level, right? And then Ricky Pearsall, of course, couldn't start the first part of the season because of that tragic incident that happened to him. He only had a total of 325 offensive snaps. So, Deebo Samuel's the guy that leaves the 49ers that we're all kind of okay with him leaving because he didn't have great production last year. It was even worse than the year before, which wasn't as good as the year before that. Now, don't mistake anything. Like I really believe Deebo Samuel is still going to have a good year this year. I really do believe that. But I understand why the 49ers move on from him, and I accept it, even though in my mind I can still close my eyes and see so many incredible plays where he turned something that was small into something massive. But Demarcus Robinson, okay, he comes in. He's another one of your vets. He's absolutely making the team. They paid him to play on this football team. Has 543 snaps, but Demarcus Robinson could be banned for a few games, so that could be a problem for him. If he gets banned for a few games and can't because of that DUI incident, then Demarcus Robinson is off the table for that beginning of the season, So I guess I don't really know. You have to let me know in the comments. I can't remember what happens with your roster, how that works, because they're obviously, Anyway, let me know in the comments. Does he take up a roster spot in that scenario? I can't really remember. I'm trying to think in the past, but whatever. So then Jacob Cowing, okay, he had 71 snaps. Again, not a lot of experience. Didn't even have enough snaps to get a PFF grade last year. Jordan Watkins is a rookie. Isaiah Nair is a rookie. Malik Knowles, he's played before. If that helps, he's been on a couple NFL teams, but not a lot of experience. Tariq Owens never touched foot on an NFL field to my knowledge in a game. I mean, he was a rookie last year, and he was pretty much always on the practice squad. Did he ever make it up for a moment? I don't think he did. Junior Bergen, rookie Trent Taylor, he's on IR. We're not going to talk about Trent Taylor. He's not, no offense, he's not making the team. He has one important role to the 49ers. He's their backup punter. That's basically his role at this stage in his life in terms of what he can do for the 49ers. Russell Gage, K, there you go. And then Isaiah Hodgins. All right, so that's the list. That's the order of those players in the depth chart. But if you look at those snap counts, you're seeing a lot of they don't have snaps because they never play in the NFL, or you're seeing really low snap counts compared to what someone like Brandon Aiyuk would have done in 2023, what Deebo Samuel did even just last year, even though he was injured for a little while. Like that, you're seeing that big difference there. So I'm not advocating for the 49ers going out there and getting another veteran wide receiver. I'm not sure that's the best option. The question that I asked to you is, do you feel that this wide receiver room is underrated? Because if it's not underrated and it's rightfully rated, and then it's being rated based on what you're seeing on the screen right now, which is not exactly an ideal scenario. Let's talk about the good news, though. You've got Jacob Cowing and Ricky Pearsall, who both, conventional wisdom is that they're going to improve this upcoming season. Ricky, because he's going to have a full season. Jacob, because the both of them, because they had a lot of offseason work. Everybody's been raving about how much work Jacob Cowing has done on the offseason, so that's something to consider. Ricky Pearsall, he has a place on this football team. There's no doubt about that, and he has a place, he has a position, he's going to get opportunities. Jacob Cowing is a little more twitchy. He's a little bit slicker, harder to catch. Not slicker in terms of route running, because, of course, Slick Rick, but slicker in the sense that he's kind of slippery. That's the word I'm looking for. He's a little more slippery, so a little bit tougher to tackle. So we're excited. I'm excited about Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing. Absolutely. So if you went out there and let's say Demarcus Robinson couldn't play and Brandon Aiyuk is not able to play yet the first game of the season, you're looking at Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, and then who? You might have, well, I'm assuming if those guys aren't playing, you're going to have Malik Knowles up there, probably. He's going to be a guy that has some experience, has been around for a little while, an undrafted guy, but he's still trying to prove it, right? Maybe he makes the team. There's a lot of people who believe he can make the 49ers roster. Then, of course, you have Isaiah Nair, who's an absolute speed demon, burner. Dude is insane. With the size that he has at 200 and I forget his exact weight now, 216, 218, something like that. I mean, at his size, to be able to run a 4.340 is something to behold. And his speed, his pace, can he get his hands together in the NFL at the NFL level to catch footballs from Brock Purdy? That is a little bit of a question mark. But Jordan Watkins has everybody really exciting right now. And I'll throw out one more thing that needs to be talked about in terms of what the 49ers do with this wide receiver depth chart. And it's the names that always go unmentioned when we're talking about the wide receiver core. It's George Kittle, guys. It's George Kittle. It's Christian McCaffrey. It's these guys who are not wide receivers, quote unquote, but they're massively important in the wide receiver game, in the receiving game. So I'm really excited, of course, for George Kittle coming out there. He'll add a lot. Having Christian McCaffrey back, knock on wood. This table is made of wood. Don't worry, I knocked on it. Having Christian McCaffrey back in the game, not just in the run game. Of course, that's valuable. I mean, his 2023 Offensive Player of the Year season, he caught the ball a ton as well. He teared it up every which way imaginable. We need that Christian McCaffrey back. I have a lot of reason to believe he is going to be that quality of player going forward this upcoming season. There's a really good opportunity for him, of course. And so if Brock Purdy can get some more of those checkdowns going, if Isaac Guerendo can take a step up when Christian McCaffrey's not in and he's resting, we're going to say, not injured. We're going to say resting because I'm not knocking on wood again. And when he's on the field, if Isaac Guerendo can pull some of his wide receiver history out there and be more available in the passing game from a running back perspective, you're going to see the 49ers being able to do a lot. One more thing, can't forget to talk about it. We have to talk about it. The 49ers did sign Luke Farrell, and that does mean there will be more 2 tight end sets. Assuredly. Like it's a done deal. That's going to happen. That could be 12, that could be 22, but we're going to see more opportunities for two tight ends which means running the ball both ways, which means more opportunities for guys like George Kittle to get out and pass, to get in out and passing scenarios where it's not quite as obvious who they're going to, because they could be running the ball in either direction. It just makes us more dangerous. I'd like to see more screenplays. I feel like we gave up on that a little bit because Deebo struggled with it this year. Not sure why, if it was Deebo, if it was blocking, I don't know, but it was happening this last year. So I think there's a huge opportunity here for the 49ers, even if Brandon Aiyuk and Demarcus Robinson can't start the season. We look very, very young. That is the thing I'm really excited about. The 49ers look really young, okay? Brandon Aiyuk himself is still pretty young. He's still got a lot of great years ahead of him as a wide receiver should he stay healthy. Okay, I'll knock on wood. Got to knock on wood for that one. And then, of course, Juwan Jennings, he's still fairly young. Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Jordan Watkins, Isaiah Nair. We got a lot of names on this list that are young dudes. And, Tariq Owens is a guy that, don't forget about him. He could sneak onto this roster, especially if Brandon Aiyuk can't start the beginning of the season. Tariq Owens could sneak onto this roster. He's a guy that the 49ers believed in enough to keep him around on the practice squad. Thankful that he didn't get picked up during when he got cut, right? As the roster cuts took place, and they were able to pick him up and get him on the practice squad. And this is a guy that the 49ers, and I'm not the only person saying this, a lot of people believe this, that the 49ers believe in him and want to give him the room to develop. Didn't come to football first like his dad, went to basketball and then came to football later. So they believe they can get something out of him still. So don't sleep on him. He's a guy that showed up at the beginning of OTAs. It was before OTAs. It was rookie minicamp. He showed up at rookie minicamp, and he was leading the lines because he's the one guy who's been around long enough with the 49ers organization to know what to do. And so he was leading the lines, and everybody noticed that. That was something that stood out. So we'll have to wait and see how all of this plays out, of course. And this list that you see in front of you, I would say numbers 7 through 12, genuinely there's a way in which we're in the middle of training camp, and those players have all shifted massively. 7 to 12. I'm hoping Isaiah Nair is that guy because he's an absolute burner. There's something about that. I'd love to have a guy like that with the straight line speed to be able to, and the size to go up there and challenge for a ball deep over the top. I love players like that. That size, I'm just kind of biased toward it. So I'd love to see him make the team. Of course, Jordan Watkins is a guy that I think has some things that he could offer the 49ers. And, between Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, potentially Ricky Pearsall, there are some guys on this list right here who could fill in some of the Deebo roles, some of the jet sweeps, some of that kind of stuff, some of the off books kind of stuff as well, coming out of, how they play. And, we see it a lot with, George Kittle, right? Where he'll talk about how he kind of was running the route and then based on the space, he kind of made a slight adjustment, and Brock Purdy knows that. There's some opportunity there for a couple of these guys to be a little more off color in some certain ways. It's not, I don't know. It's not exactly a perfect Kyle Shanahan fit. Shanahan is such a disciplined guy, but we've seen it happen. It can happen, and there's a couple of guys on here with some incredible talent, so I'd like to see it. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. All super, super hyped. All I can do is just be hyped about what's upcoming, and I hope that you are with me as well. This is going to be a super, super fun off-season. The rest of the offseason is going to be amazing. We have 4 days until mandatory minicamp, so that'll be interesting. We'll get to see a little bit more. There's 2 days long, and then we'll have a long break. And there'll be a lot to break down and start looking at what that 53-man roster looks like, start getting into depth charts for other positions as well. So much there. Appreciate all of you guys for subscribing and being a part here, and let me know in the comments what you think. As always, if you're on YouTube right now, appreciate you liking the video, all that good stuff, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend.